Dream Team sampling again. But this year I I changed my sampling sites and I requested Oxford, or some Oxford sites. So I was looking for kind of safer sites to go to, and I do enjoy going to Oxford more. Familiar with the area. There's food if I want to get food after the sampling. So going to my first site now. It's about 10 minutes away. Stony Run. A little nervous. It's a high-speed road that it's near. It's on a bridge. Or really all of my sites are on a bridge. I don't know if it's going to be a really busy morning. But I got my reflective vest on and should be fine. Right now we're next to Fort Hamilton. Now it's called, what is it called? They just call it Kettering, Hamilton. It's been bought. It's now part of the Kettering system. Kettering Health. We're going to turn right on Eaton Ave. Middle School. Temperature's decent. Supposedly 50 degrees right now. Some drizzling. closer to the side. Man, it's really flowing out there. Oh. Next one is Dars Run and then Vaughn. So this next one I have to kind of loop around so I end up on the correct side to head to Oxford. I've never taken this road coming up. It's called Scott Road. In the Dartown area, our village. Kind of crazy going 55 on this kind of hilly road, kind of narrow too. these sites are pretty good. There's a nice parking spot. It's highly visible. It is on fast roads, but it gives the drivers a heads up that I'm here. I got my hazards on, my vest on. I got one more after this. It's near the Miami Stadium. now. We're on Oxford Milford, trying to get to Bonham Road here on the left. Back here. That's about it. We got Jaeger Stadium on the right. I'm going to take a left onto Shadowy Hills Lane, I think. Shadowy Hills Drive. This is a one-way. being in my 98 Accord, rushing to class up this road. Then I'd either park along this road here where this Prius is, or I'd park on the right in this Miami Inn parking lot, or behind the psychology building, or on the left at Markham. Or I'd get lucky and there would be a spot along here, and then I could run into Pearson and do some research. I guess I'll park behind this guy. Used to park in here too. And then they cracked down on that. Too many people were hanging out in that garage.
welcome to McDonald's. Are you going to be using our mobile app?
Yep, it's 8577.
Okay, what can I get for you?
I'll do a sausage burrito with mild sauce, a sausage McMuffin, and I have a coupon for a free hash brown.
Okay, you're just going to have to give it to them at the window.
Okay.
Is that it for you?
That's all.
Okay, your total comes to $3.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sweet. Hello. Thank you.
No problem. Good day.
You too. Alright. Man, these sites are way better. I'm finishing early. I'm next to stuff that I like to do, I guess. Okay. Yeah. We're in Oxford. I feel like I'm back in my 20s when I drive through here. Good times.
Darian Woods.
And I'm Waylon Wong, and we are here celebrating Jobs Friday, like we do every month.
That's right. Today we learned that 275,000 jobs were added to the US economy in February, and the unemployment rate rose a little to 3.9%.
So a small tick up in the unemployment rate, but based on history, it's still pretty low. And within all those jobs, nurses, mechanics, administrators, one occupation is on quite a tear, and that's wind turbine service technicians. They're known as wind techs, people who look after those gigantic structures with propellers tumbling in the wind. And the number of wind techs in the US is expected to grow by 45% over 10 years.
And given all this projected growth, I wanted to know what the job entails. So I went to a wind farm up in Maine, the biggest wind farm in the state. It was near a town called Bingham. I tagged along with wind tech Connor Terrio.
I think there's going to be a ton more opportunity for people to build a career out of it.
Darian, are you here to announce a career pivot from podcasting to wind tech?
I had a pretty fun time, I must admit. But no, I'm here to document this very interesting and fast-growing industry. I actually signed up the wind turbine.
Darian, did you have to sign a waiver?
I did actually.
Well, I can't wait to hear more OSHA-approved anecdotes after the break.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Spectrum Business, made to work just like your small business. Fast, reliable internet, phone, and mobile services made to keep up with demand and made to deliver on a small business budget. Discover more at spectrum.com/work. This message comes from Apple Card. Earn up to 3% daily cash back on every purchase, every day. Then grow it at 4.50% annual percentage yield when you open a savings account with Apple Card. Visit apple.co/card calculator to see how much you can earn. Apple Card is subject to credit approval. Savings available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This message comes from Charles Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it. You can also invest on your own and trade on Thinkorswim. Visit schwab.com to learn more.
At the Bingham Wind Farm, you start your day with stretches. Picture a circle of men in an industrial garage, beards, beanies. They're pulling on their steel-capped boots to stretch their quadriceps. And it's a vital muscle in this job, which I'll find out later. This is all before a conversation about what needs to happen for the day. And in the crew, you've got Connor Terrio. He's a lead technician for Vestas. He's had the job for several years. He's super measured, which is important because safety is a huge priority at this company.
There's a lot of electrical hazards just inherent. You're in the more controlled cabinets, rotational mechanical forces. Just there's a lot of hazards with the job.
Looks like everybody's got their boots on.
Vestas is among the top wind energy companies in the world. It's a Danish company servicing more than 57,000 wind turbines globally. It's got a brigade of wind techs maintaining and fixing wind turbines. And with US wind capacity forecast to double in the decade to 2030, that is growing. And look, I'll be honest, when I read about this, I did not know what the job actually was. Like, sure, maybe the blades need replacing once in a while, or the generators presumably break down sometimes. So that's how I found myself wearing a hard hat while riding an orange snowcat. You know, the snowmobile sort of tracks like a tank. And today, Connor's focusing on the annual maintenance of one of the wind turbines. So in between these snowy slopes of this woods in Maine, you've got 56 bone-white wind turbines stretched into the sky. Each are about as high as a 28-story building. They're beautiful to some, they're ugly to others, but when all the wind farms are combined, they are generating about 10% of America's electricity. But in any case, I couldn't see them that day because of the fog. I could barely even see the one that we were meant to service.
If you want to head right up, I'm going to meet Adam there. I'll grab that stuff from you and put it in the bag.
Today's job, make sure the parts are all in good order. Top up the lubricant and oil, check the engine's working well. We walked inside the ground floor of the wind turbine. Above us was a 34,500 volt cable and a very tall ladder. Knowing that I was going to soon be climbing up the inside of the equivalent of the Statue of Liberty, I was keen to learn more about these safety protocols I'd heard so much about. And in this case, safety meant a lot of gear. Hard out and harness, obviously, but there were so many carabiners. Small ones, big ones, carabiners for my carabiners. As we got ready for climbing, I felt like I was carrying half my weight in these spring-loaded aluminium hooks. Our ascent was aided by a clever piece of technology called Climb Assist, which is like a little electric tug up the rope, kind of like pedal assist on an e-bike. It makes the scrambling easier. At the top was the engine room. Even with the mechanical help, I really understood why they were stretching their quads earlier. I was a little tired when I got to the top.
I mean, if you guys check hydraulic oil.
And there you had a big blue dome, which was the electricity generator. You also had a computer and a steel cabinet to one side, tubes and cables neatly tucked away. And this is where a small team of wind techs will be based for 2 or 3 shifts. The turbine is off at the time, you don't want to be tumbling around, of course. And on the way up, Connor noticed some oil drips underneath the engine room.
We will drop down. It looked to be, it might have been a residual gear oil leak, but we can go investigate that.
Let's investigate the leak. So we headed back down one floor.
Looks like the gearbox is overfull at one point, so there's a little bit on the deck below us. It'll be important to get that cleaned up, and also
Connor took a note to get his co-workers to figure out exactly how much oil the gearbox actually needs.
so we'll have them do that. That way they're all prepared for tomorrow morning.
The team is also replacing filters and refilling the turbines with lubricant that will slowly pump to the blades over the next year. They were sweeping out a year's worth of flies and ladybugs who had made the wind turbine their final resting place. We were like mice scurrying inside a sophisticated car engine. We were mice with hard hats on and a ton of carabiners. Looking up at one of those sleek, minimalist blades, you never would have known the complexity of what was behind the steel and fiberglass. I mean, I certainly didn't. We went slowly going down, one person at a time. Safety first, because one dropped cell phone or wrench could be deadly for somebody below. One fatality or serious injury could turn the tide of public opinion against these wind turbines. And that is already fragile enough as it is. You know, around the US, some people are worrying about the noise or what they'll do to the landscape. And back at the office, I asked Connor about what he had heard from the people in the town.
You know, certain guys will sort of gripe about, oh, you know, I used to hunt that land and you guys have ruined it. But honestly, we see moose and deer all the time. Like, the animals are still here, but for the most part, people are very receptive.
The wind farm's open to the public, so people on snowmobiles, hikers, hunters, they'll actually chat with the wind techs.
Our guys are really good about taking the time to explain certain things and answer questions that they may have. And everyone, for the most part, is honestly very positive.
And Connor himself was really good about taking the time to show me through his day. His time is valuable. His base pay is around $73,000 plus overtime and benefits. And that's only likely to increase as the competition for hiring wind turbine service technicians heats up. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
This episode was produced by Julia Ritchie, with engineering by Valentina Rodriguez Sanchez. It was fact-checked by Sierra Juarez. Kate Kincannon edits the show, and The Indicator is a production of NPR. Okay, this is the windicator. On the top of an air turbine. It's windy. Who'd have thought?
There's a new way to support this show and public media. Please consider signing up for the NPR Plus podcast bundle. NPR Plus listeners get to unlock sponsor-free shows and bonus episodes. You can find out more at plus.npr.org, and thanks.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Spectrum Business, made to work just like your small business. Fast, reliable internet, phone, and mobile services, made to keep up with demand and made to deliver on a small business budget. Discover more at spectrum.com/work. This message comes from NPR sponsor Charles Schwab with its original podcast on investing. Each week, you'll get thoughtful, in-depth analysis of both the stock and the bond markets. Listen today and subscribe at schwab.com/oninvesting or wherever you get your podcasts. This message comes from NPR sponsor Spectrum Business, made to work just like your small business. Fast, reliable internet, phone, and mobile services, made to keep up with demand and made to deliver on a small business budget. Discover more at spectrum.com/work.
This is Planet Money from NPR.
When I reached journalist Matt Bellamy last week, it was in the final 24 hours of an intensely fought campaign season. Different factions led by specialized campaign strategists had just spent the better part of 8 months pushing their candidates through a grueling gauntlet of stump speeches, fancy galas, voter outreach events, many of which Matt had himself attended. Do you ever think of yourself as a kind of campaign reporter?
Oh, all the time. I am a campaign reporter for the entertainment industry.
Matt used to be the editor of The Hollywood Reporter. These days he hosts a podcast called The Town. And yes, the campaigns that we're talking about today, these are the glitzy, glossy campaigns put on by Hollywood movie studios every year in hopes of winning big at the Academy Awards. And these campaigns come to a head in the weeks leading up to the ceremony.
That's where you start to see people doing desperate things, like taking off all their clothes and floating in a freezing river like Bradley Cooper did for the New York Times Magazine. Or you see Ryan Gosling climbing the Warner Brothers water tower to take a photo for a trade magazine. Or you see the border collie from the movie Anatomy of a Fall get treated like a celebrity and carted around town and brought to charm voters. That is a campaign strategy.
Matt says that this time of year, the signs of this massive campaign machinery are all around us. Like, maybe you saw Best Actress nominee Emma Stone hosting SNL. Emma Stone! Or maybe you heard her wherever you get your podcasts.
Emma Stone, welcome to Fresh Air. I love this movie and your performance in it.
Maybe you caught Best Actor nominee Cillian Murphy of Oppenheimer, profiled on CBS's 60 Minutes, 7 months after the movie came out, but perfectly timed to the start of Academy voting.
2023 was the year the world learned to pronounce Cillian, the ancient Irish name.
Or you may have noticed the mysterious words "for your consideration" splashed across movie ads in your local newspaper or on billboards all across Los Angeles. And maybe you wondered, is it my consideration they're asking for?
No, although it's a nice byproduct, I guess. The consideration they are asking for is awards voters to consider this movie for awards voting.
For a long time, I think I had this kind of naive understanding of award shows like the Oscars. Like, sure, they are maybe a nauseatingly self-aggrandizing celebration of Hollywood, but at their core, I think I assumed that they were basically meritocratic. Matt Bellamy says no.
When you watch the Oscars, you are watching the end result of an 8 to 10 month strategic and very expensive political campaign. Plain and simple.
Hello and welcome to Planet Money. I'm Alexi Horowitz-Ghazi. Once upon a time, getting a big Oscar nomination or a win could dependably be turned into box office gold. But over the past couple decades, the economics of movie making have changed that calculus. Today on the show, we peek into the Oscars campaign playbook to figure out why Hollywood juggernauts are still spending tens of millions of dollars trying to win Academy Awards.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Spectrum Business, made to work just like your small business. Fast, reliable internet, phone, and mobile services, made to keep up with demand and made to deliver on a small business budget. Discover more at spectrum.com/work. Support for NPR and the following message come from BlackRock's podcast, The Bid. On the latest episode, Gen AI through a COO lens, host Oscar Polito sits down with BlackRock COO Rob Goldstein and lead technologist Lance Bronstein to discuss how business leaders are considering Gen AI to amplify human capabilities, upskill the workforce, and recalibrate approaches to client interactions. Listen to the episode now on The Bid and subscribe to hear more market insights from BlackRock's thought leaders.
Heads up, in this episode we mention Amazon, Apple, Disney, Neon Films, Netflix, and Universal Pictures, all companies that sponsor NPR or pay to distribute NPR content. So this can be a kind of notoriously secretive part of the entertainment industry. Like, give us a sense of how you've come to know what you know when it comes to these Oscars campaigns.
Well, I have been a journalist covering this industry for more than 15 years. Before that, I was an entertainment lawyer and in the business and seeing it. But it is an ecosystem unto itself.
Matt Bellamy has spent the past 2 decades translating the inner workings of Hollywood for outsiders and insiders alike. And he says the key thing to understand about the Oscars race is that it boils down to convincing individual people to support your film.
All you're trying to do is get as many votes as you can, solidify your coalition, and hopefully get a victory.
Yeah. And who exactly is the electorate here?
The electorate ultimately is the 10,000 or so members of the Motion Picture Academy.
These voters are people who've worked in the film industry and who've been invited by its board to join the Academy. Matt says that the first phase of the Oscars race, phase 1, is all about getting those voters to nominate your film. That means targeting specific groups of voters, because the Academy's 10,000 or so members are divided into branches.
Each branch nominates the nominees in their branch. So editors vote for editors, directors vote for directors, actors vote for actors, except Best Picture. Best Picture is voted on by everybody.
So if you are running a campaign, the strategy for phase 1 is to pick the battles you think you might be able to win. Is your client sitting on a potential Best Director award? You're gonna have to figure out how and where to reach every eligible director in the Academy to make sure that they have seen your movie. You'll send them screener links, invite them to star-studded, well-catered in-person screenings.
Then the nominations come out and we enter phase 2, where the table has been set and now you are trying to get people to vote for your candidate to win.
In phase 2, Matt explains, every Academy voter is fair game, because every voter is now eligible to vote in every category. And phase 2 is all about framing the film with a message, something that'll make it feel bigger than just a piece of entertainment.
Like, you can feel good voting for this movie because it means something. That's the job of the awards campaigner, to take a movie and make it important.
So take this year's frontrunner, Oppenheimer. Matt says that film has been sold as
the big, important Hollywood studio movie that, for the good of the business and the good of the industry, you should vote for this for Best Picture. They used a quote from a review that said, "This is the best movie of the century," or something like that.
We're only a quarter in.
Well, you know, it's an ad.
Compare that to the messaging for the movie Poor Things, whose For Your Consideration ads implore voters to, quote, defy expectations. Kind of an underdog message. Now, once you have your message, Matt says, the campaigns are then really about using every ounce of star power and publicity at your disposal to charm Academy voters. This is why Oscar-thirsty celebrities do splashy magazine covers or well-timed radio interviews, or why they appear at special screenings or talk at Q&As where voters might be in attendance. And every chance encounter between the talent and the voters can be incredibly important, because sometimes the way people vote can have little to do with the actual film they're being asked to consider. For example, the Hollywood Reporter does anonymous polling with individual Academy voters every year,
which reveals that people vote for the strangest reasons. This guy that Hollywood Reporter just did a ballot with, he says that he voted for Robert Downey Jr. I'm not kidding, because Downey was nice to him at a party.
Now, if all of this seems like a giant hype machine of recirculating hot air, that is very much by design. The Academy Awards were initially conceived in the 1920s, in part as a way of flattering and distracting actors who were flirting with unionization, but also as a way to promote the industry to the wider world. For most of the 20th century, it was standard for Hollywood studios to promote their films and stars for awards, but the amount of money and strategy directed solely with the aim of winning Oscars was comparatively low. So to understand how Oscars campaigns transformed into the super expensive, highly competitive circus we see today, I went to visit someone who's worked on these campaigns for decades.
Have you been working on any campaigns we might have heard of?
Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Tony Angelotti got his start in the 1980s, and since then, he's had a kind of front row seat to the transformation of Oscars campaigns. I met him at his office in LA, where the walls are covered with framed, signed posters from his different movie campaigns.
Well, in this room, let's see, we're looking at various campaigns that were either winners or nominated for Best Picture or won a number of things. Life is Beautiful, Pulp Fiction, Frost Nixon, Finding Nemo, Ray. These are all movies I worked on.
Tony says when he first started, the big studios had viewed Oscars campaigns as a way to keep the talent happy. It was just a cost of doing business. And if you did end up winning or getting nominated for a major category, you could count on what insiders call the Oscar bump. One study found if you won Best Picture in those days, it could mean up to a $12 million bump at the box office. But when Tony arrived at a company called Miramax in the early 1990s, it was already becoming clear that the company's founders, Bob and Harvey Weinstein, were thinking differently about chasing Oscars. Yes, the story of how Oscars campaigns blew up is inextricably and unfortunately